Então, boa tarde a todos e obrigado por estarem presentes e fico muito feliz por ter a casa cheia, por termos a casa cheia, portanto é fundamental aqui para os 20 anos termos um ciclo muito especial este ano e de facto com um convidado de peso como é o Piet Kroon. Mas eu queria começar por apresentar aqui a nossa parceria, de facto, porque tem sido, tal como o Horácio referiu, muito importante ao longo destes anos. Porque o Piet está integrado numa parceria que é o Cine Anima nas universidades, mas na realidade a nossa parceria vai muito além do Cine Anima nas universidades, que até digamos que é mais ou menos recente este novo ciclo, mas nós já tivemos convidados muito importantes que o Cine Anima nos trouxe, nomeadamente o Giribarta, e já foi de longa data, de facto, o Han Diamond também, e que foi, aliás, muito inspirador, particularmente, por exemplo, ao João Gonzalez, que foi o nosso estudante candidato a um Oscar, e, portanto, esta parceria, de facto, tem sido muito, muito importante. Nós também temos participado em várias atividades do Cine Anima. O Cine Anima este ano vai na 48ª edição, que realiza-se no Multimédia dos Espinhos. Aliás, está-se a realizar, é a primeira vez que está a acontecer em paralelo. E, portanto, daqui a 2 anos temos 50 anos do Cine Anima. Mas este ciclo novo do Cine Anima nas universidades, que abrange várias universidades por todo Portugal, tem sido também muito importante. Também lá está, já trouxe o João Gonçalves cá, e o Tom Moore, entre outros, e tem sido um momento muito, enfim, inspirador para os nossos estudantes poderem depois seguir o caminho da animação, como a grande referência que temos aqui do Piet Kroon. Piet Kroon, que basicamente não necessita de grandes apresentações, porque é simplesmente um realizador de animação e um artista de storyboard que colaborou com os maiores estúdios de animação, Disney, Warner Brothers, entre muitos outros. Colaborou em muitos filmes que todos provavelmente já viram no cinema, sucessos de bilheteira, o Gru, o Mal Disposto, entre o Ice Age, o Shrek 2 e por aí fora. Assim, a lista é infindável, provavelmente vocês já viram muitos filmes, de facto, em que o Piet colaborou. E o trabalho do Piet, de facto, é extremamente inspirador e o testemunho do Piet é fundamental para percebermos o que está por trás do sucesso da produção cinematográfica de animação, em particular. Mas eu não queria apresentar o Piet assim diretamente, porque julgo que esta parceria faixa 2, e neste caso em particular a Cristina Novo, da produção do Cine Anima, e uma colega com quem eu tenho trabalhado há muitos anos já, e a quem agradeço e gostava de agradecer, de facto, esta colaboração que temos tido entre a ESMAD e o Cine Anima. E, portanto, se calhar deixava uma palavra aqui à Cristina para apresentar o Piet.
Sim, ok. Boa tarde, Luís. Hello, Piet Kroon. It's an honor for us at Cine Anima. We are in the 48th Cine Anima edition, so for us it's quite an honor to have such a figure, Piet. Yes, it's very important for us to share this knowledge, and we are always counting with the generosity of these amazing artists to inspire. Especially our primal goal at Cine Anima since '76 is to inspire students to grasp the knowledge, somehow to be more creative, more daring in pursuing a career in animation. So these masterclasses, and we are this year we had an expansion of the festival, which is pretty cool for such a small team. And I'm sorry, I'm already speaking English, so like to integrate everybody, especially Piet. But just as I was saying, we had 11 masterclasses. We are still having one more tomorrow. No, this one is the last. Yeah, it's the last of 11. Okay, these days have been crazy for us. So I will not expand myself any longer. I think Piet will have some much interesting words than me to say. So I just wanted to thank you all to still visit us, because we are there waiting for you until Sunday, where we will show the awardees. It will be a special day for all the community to see and to know who won this time. Because this is Cinema, I have to say this, is the third oldest cinema festival in the world, which means that some of the stories of the animators or directors, they started at Cinema, sharing knowledge, and now we are here with a larger extended festival. This is the first time we have 10 days of festival, and yet we are there promoting and trying to fulfill our primal goal, is to share knowledge, to do a normal pitching, because it's very familiar the way we celebrate. We are very related every day during the whole festival. So it is very interesting, because if you go there, you will meet them all. You will meet interesting artists, and you can share a view or even your creative process, taking a coffee. So we wanted still to make Cinema small in terms of affection, of relationships, of friendship, but still we want to produce something more and more professional. So I thank you all, and please, Piet, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I have no idea how many people in the audience are actually studying animation. Maybe you can raise your hand. Oh, they're all in the back for some reason. That's great, thank you. So this talk is going to be about storyboarding. I'm a Dutch animator. But ever since, I think, 1995, I've been working in the United States, mostly as a storyboard artist. I worked on, amongst others, these films up on the screen. There's a few of them that just got a little bit bigger, that I actually directed. So I worked on the storyboards and then also directed the animation. The two short films I did. Both of them were lucky to win an award at the Espino Festival, and these short films have really helped me to get my career started in America. Aside from storyboarding on feature films, I've also written screenplays for various films, and I wanted to start with the real important stuff, because I don't know how much we have limited time, and I have a lot of things to show. But the key thing I've learned in all these years and years of storyboarding and working in animation is a very basic truth about filmmaking, and that truth is that story is change. It's what we call in Holland an open door. It's very obvious, but it's also, it is really true, because the most famous opening line of any story, of course, is once upon a time there was. And the important word in this is the word was. It means that when the story started, the situation was different, then the story got underway, and by the end of it, it's a changed situation. And when we tell a story, that's kind of what we do and what we control. And how do you do that? I think all humans are, through the evolution, are hardwired to recognize patterns in the world around us. In the 1950s, there was a very famous guy called Rudolf Arnheim, and he developed it's a really good book to study even today. It's called Art and Visual Perception. And it's in a very simple manner, it explains some of the processes that really date back to when we were all, I guess, monkeys. And there was lions around, and we would walk through the world and see the stuff we recognized was safe, and we could ignore that. But every now and again, you'd see a lion, and then you knew that's not normal, and then you paid more attention. So what he did is very simple things like this. So you look at this image, and without thinking, immediately you recognize there's 3 types of shapes which belong together, and something changes. It's the change that suddenly speaks to you. And that's the kind of thing in storytelling, and particularly in storyboarding, is what you have to learn to control, basically. So you have a storyboard panel, and then the next panel shows a change in the story, and the difference between those 2 panels tells you a little bit of the story. So you see this character, and then there's a change, and that is it's very simple, but it's a key thing to keep in mind when you're working in storyboards, to control those things and to really sort of, one step at a time, show your audience the changes as you go through your story. And it applies just on a level of going from the one story panel to the next, so there's clear changes between them. But you can also apply it to bigger parts of the story. And so because it's about change, one of the key storytelling principles that exist in my mind is things that are alike, that mirror, like a mirror image, and things that are contrasting. And I once put together this presentation about an old Hitchcock film called Rear Window. I don't know how many people have seen it. It's a nice, beautiful film, and it's about this guy, James Stewart, who's an old photographer, and he has a beautiful girlfriend, and he broke his leg. And he's stuck at home, and he's trying to really. I mean, the story is it's a murder mystery like many Hitchcock films, but at a deeper level, it's really about the question: should I marry Grace Kelly? And as he's stuck inside his apartment, he can overlook the backyard, and he sees from his window. He sees in another apartment is where a bachelor is living, who's having a great time throwing parties. And then there's pretty girls he can look at in a different apartment from his own apartment. And particularly there's like a dancer lives across the way from him that he checks in on every now and again. Then there's another apartment. There's an old spinster, like a woman who never got married, who lives by herself. Then there's also another apartment where 2 newly married people move in, and quickly close the window. Then across the street again is like a long married couple. These are like people who've been together for years and years and years. And of course, the most important one, there's a guy who he suspects may have killed his wife. So all these neighbors kind of reflect back on his central question: should I marry Grace Kelly? Should I give up the other beautiful girls in the world, or am I better off remaining a bachelor? I can have parties and nobody's going to bother me. All these things reflect back on his central story. In contrasting with him, because the characters chose a different path, or they're more like him. So in all this is circling around this big question of should I marry Grace Kelly, which really isn't a very difficult question to answer, because she's one of the most beautiful actresses ever, I think. And how does this apply to animation, you may ask? Well, if you have this is from ideas from Rio 2, the second Rio movie. The character is the villain of the movie. A character called Nigel. He used to be a fully feathered cockatoo, but by the end of the first movie, he ends up as a plucked chicken, basically. And we meet him in this in the script. We met him. He was working in a circus, and he worked with a couple of other animals. And all these animals had to sort of in the first script, go with him on this adventure. And so you have to, how do you distinguish between these four henchmen, basically? And I thought, thinking along the lines of this Rear Window example, like how can these other characters possibly relate to this central character and shed a different light on him? Well, they could love him, or they could hate him. They could be completely indifferent about him, or they could see no difference. So it goes from, I love you, to I hate you, to you're just like me, to who? And I try to assign these four, how do you say, poles, I guess you could say, with the characters that he had along with him. So there's a little frog, still in the pretty major character in the movie, who's completely in love with Nigel. Thinks everything he does is just great, total admiration. She's his biggest fan. Then this jaguar just hates Nigel and is very jealous of him. Then there's an emu bird, I think, who just thinks there's no difference. We're both birds. We both can't fly. We both don't have eggs. And she's always like nagging, not pretending like she's in exactly the same boat as Nigel, which annoys him, of course. And then there's the anteater, who basically only cares about ants and will do anything for anybody, for ants. He's really indifferent about Nigel. And when you have these things in the back of your mind, this is part of my pitch back then. Like, how can we distinguish these four characters that didn't really, in the script, didn't really have a very specific point of view? How can we make them different? So, and then I pitched some ideas, like the kind of jokes you could have with characters that I sort of set up this way. So imagine, the emu bird is nagging Nigel, and he just simply throws an ant at it, and the anteater attacks the bird, and he's happy he did it, and the leopard is jealous. Ants, why didn't I think of that? I hate him. I love him. And there's other, like, you pitch all sorts of jokes to basically try and sell your idea to the director. Maybe they like it, the bird mistakes the tongue for a worm. And that's the kind of stuff you're asked to do when you work on like a feature film in America. This sort of, often you'd come in really early in the process when there's not really a script, nothing has really been defined, and you're helping to pull the focus, like you do in a camera. You pull things into focus, and of course there's a chance that you pull the wrong thing into focus, and then they'll let you know. And then next time you kind of change the focus. So just a little clip of, should start playing now. From different films.
One small step for man, giant leap for mankind.
So, as I'm sure a lot of you understand, storyboarding is exactly like using a real camera. Like, only thing is, instead of a real camera, you have a pencil and you have to draw everything. But you're capable of doing the same kind of planning the same kind of moves. So for this shot, you could have the matador enters the arena. You can keep it very rough, because that's the beauty of storyboarding. There's nothing that I would draw would actually sort of make it on the screen exactly like that. So I could afford to be very loose and do quick sketches, because it's not really about how beautiful the drawing is. It's more about do they like the idea, yes or no? And you could give a little bit of background. You can add some lighting if you want to. You could give it a color to give it some more mood. And then you just do all these like key poses, basically, of the action to show that this is really kind of a ruthless matador who, you can't see it on this slide, but he yanks the roses away from between his teeth, and a little bit of blood trickles down, and he doesn't flinch. So this is a mean guy, tough guy. In the same way, you can find shots, get into acting. Just basically you can go into full color if you wanted to sell the idea more. And as long as you can draw it, you can also do kind of fancy things and sort of camera moves, intended camera moves. It's all, everything. All these things are before the production actually starts. So you're just trying out things and showing possibilities to the directors and the producers, so they can pick and choose. It always starts normally with a script. Like I said, in some cases, and those were actually the more fun films, there was no script. There was just like a vague outline of what the story is supposed to be. And then you really have to be, there's nothing to really lean on. And you have to really get inventive with it all. But basically you get the script and then you read through it and you just, you start, imagining your camera angles, just like you would with a real camera, to break up the scene in different shots. And it could work out something like this. So this is part of Despicable Me, the first version, but a very early version of the film. And it's an establishing shot of the laboratory of Gru, I think, the bad guy in the film. And this you pitch to the team, to the story team. It's often like 8, sometimes even more, like 12 or 15 story people, and the director and the producer, all sit in a room, and you have to basically sell the story, and you have to also act it out, and have to do all the voices, which can be kind of embarrassing, but it kind of goes like this. So we have several options: chocolate chip, butternut squirrel, or cocoa nutty. Let's go with cocoa nutty. But I need them by tomorrow. Can you do it? Can I do it? I once designed a thermonuclear device disguised as a raisin before lunch. I think I can handle it. And then one of the minions catches it in his mouth and walks off. That's kind of what you have to imagine. There's nothing there. There's just like a blank. You have got the script, of course, and you have to fill in. You have to, just do something and hoping that it's that they're going to like it. You act out the poses. There's no real voices been recorded yet, so you have to sort of imagine the character. How intense are they? Do they have a funny accent, or do they? How do they act? And then there's things like this that are not really in the script, like the way he kind of magically turns this bomb into a raisin is animation magic. It can't really happen in real life. And the little joke with the minion at the end was also not in the script. It's just something you add in to see again if they'd like it. And for this film, when I worked on it, it was really early, and we knew there were minions, but nobody knew what to do with them really, and there was very little guidance from the directors because they didn't really know. So they just generated lots and lots of ideas, and then cherry-picked the stuff that they liked. And now we know these minions, and we know what they do and can't do, but all of that has to be invented. So in this talk, I was going to go and basically take you through the genesis of a sequence of a film. The sequence from Rio 2. I don't know if you've seen the Rio's films. Did they make it as Portugal? I'm sure they did, because the director was Brazilian, so he's sort of half Portuguese. Anyway, the first Rio, as you'll remember, there's 2 parrots, Blue on the left and Jewel on the right. And Blue lives with his owner, Linda, in America, in North America, in a very cold state, Minnesota. And of course, Jewel lives in Brazil in a tropical climate. And they're both the last of their species. So they get together. Tulio is like a scientist who works in Brazil. Goes to Minnesota to find Blue and then get them to go back to Brazil to mate, so that the species may survive. And I'm not going to tell the whole story, but if you've seen it, you know that they at first Jewel doesn't like Blue at all. He can't fly. He's not a serious bird. And on top of that, there's smugglers who are trying to steal these two very expensive and very rare parrots. And by the end of it, it's a perfectly happy end where Blue and Jewel, they actually, last we see them in the film, they have 3 kids, so they waste no time. And also Linda and Tulio get together. So it's a movie in which there's a big change. Like I said, stories change. Well, in the beginning, Blue and Jewel didn't like each other, but by the end of it, they've kind of grown to like each other, and Blue has actually learned to fly, to be more like a real bird. And also the story between these two humans has found the classic resolution. So it came out and it was a hit. And then, of course, the idea pops up that let's do a sequel. And on this film, I was the head of story, so I was really involved from the very beginning, trying to figure out the story. It was a film in which there was no there was no script when we started it. We just knew the first one was a success, so this one, will probably be a success too. And it's basically the story that Linda and Tulio find proof in the Amazon that there's more of these parrots, blue macaws. And so they're in the jungle trying to find these mysterious birds. And Blue and Jewel and their 3 kids decide to go up, to fly to the Amazon to help them. And that's where the complications set in, because they find these wild birds. It turns out that it's not just any flock of birds, but it's Jewel's father that she got separated from a long time ago. And also she meets an old boyfriend again, a bird called Roberto. He's on the right there. So all of that is very... Blue doesn't like that at all. It's a lot of pressure. He has to basically, in this movie, prove that he's not just a bird in that he can fly, but he's actually capable to be a real jungle bird. And there's all sorts of... he has to prove to his father-in-law that Jewel chose the right mate, basically. So in a sense, and there's, of course, on top of that, there's also Nigel is back in the film, who's trying to get revenge for what happened to him in the first film. So in a sense, if you do a sequel, you have to. In the first film, everything had a happy ending. There's a nice bow on top of it, like a birthday gift. And we now have to open it up again and create new problems for these characters and figure out a way for them to change in this second story. Because in the first story they changed and they found this new, how do you say, I can't think of the word. They found a happy ending place, and now you have to mess up this ending, create new problems. It's all about, Blue feels that he's inadequate and his kids don't like him anymore. They don't want to, he would rather go back to Rio to live with his owner. And Jewel wants to really, for them to stay in the jungle. So that's his big problem in the film. Can he survive in the wild? Then, so the first thing that happens is, as they're still writing the first draft of the screenplay, we, as a story team, got to read it, and then you're invited to just to prepare a pitch where you offer up some ideas, like possibilities. What could we do to make this story more entertaining? So I'll just show you quickly a couple of ideas that I came up with back then. There's an opening sequence that takes place at New Year's in Rio. Lots of fireworks. And my idea was that let's just not have beautiful fireworks in the sky, but let's put our characters right in the middle of it. So one of the kids of Blue and Jewel is very irresponsible and launches himself on a big piece of firework, and Blue has to rescue him. It creates a lot of problems. So it's a way to make as simple as written in the screenplay. It was a very kind of boring scene to make it a bit more exciting. Other idea was these birds in the jungle. Normally, these macaws live in like clay banks, not very attractive. And I thought, now what if they, in the jungle, there's all these old ruins. So they were built by humans, but the humans have long gone. And now these birds who hate human beings actually live in that environment. I kind of like that idea. But Carlos Saldanha, the director, who's Brazilian, said we can't do that because there are no ruins in the Amazon. So it's an idea I thought really worked for the story, but reality shut it down. And this is a quick idea for one of the tests they put Blue to. I try to think of like organic tests like the birds could actually do. So the trick here is that it's Blue on the right and Roberto on the left. This very macho bird, and they hold on to a stick, and they go off this beautiful giant waterfall that is in the Amazon. So that worked. And the challenge is who they go into free fall. Who holds on to the stick the longest is the bravest bird. And so down they go, and then much to everybody's surprise, it would be Blue who keeps on holding on and falls down, and Roberto bails out. Of course, it turns out what we maybe seen before, that Nigel's trying to kill Blue, so he put like glue on the stick, so Blue can't even. He's stuck to it, and so he makes it out the other end, and it looks like he did it. And so this is they didn't go for this idea for whatever reason, I don't know, but it's all about like offering up possibilities to have more fun things than were in the script at the time. This is ultimately the thing that we're going to be focused on the most, I think, this afternoon, because in the script. So the story kicks off with Linda and Tullio find this feather in the jungle that means that there may be another couple of birds there. But it was on TV, so it was very kind of just like the other birds are back in Rio. They're watching TV. They see their owners and they found a feather. And my pitch was, why don't we make that finding of this feather into a sequence and also give the audience a taste of what it means, what this Amazon means. Of course, there's, it's going to go all through the world. Kids of all nations, they don't all know everything about the jungle, and I thought this would be a cool way to just show Linda and Tullio and the dog. There was a dog in this pitch, and they they chase this feather, and there's rapids, and you showed this in adventures and maybe even a dangerous place. And this idea landed well with the director. He really liked that idea. So he asked me, I put the dates on it to put together like a story beat pitch. So you don't storyboard the full sequence, but you kind of like show it as a picture book almost. So I'll quickly go through that. So we meet up Linda and Tullio and a character called Fernando, like a little kid, also came from the first film. They're in the Amazon, deep in the Amazon, and they see, it's kind of like a nature documentary. They're trespassing into the jungle, and all the animals see them come in, and what are they doing there? Instead of just I gave them a reason, because Tullio runs like a bird hospital in Rio. So in this pitch, they set free a bird that they rescued before. Maybe they rescued it from smugglers, and they nurtured it back to health, and now it's back in the jungle, and it reconnects with the other birds of its kind, and happy. And Linda and Tullio, are proud of their work, and little Fernando is even kind of gets choked up. And then suddenly there's an attack. It's a mysterious attack, because in the story, these wild macaws don't like humans to be around. So I thought, maybe we should make that make it real, not just by talking about it, but by showing it in a scene that they actually get attacked with a spider and a snake thrown at them. We don't know who does this, and that's sort of another thing that's important. You raise a big question in the audience's mind. Like, these are clearly good people, good humans. They go to the jungle to help animals, and so why are they being attacked? And you don't, that's kind of a question you raise for people to have in the back of their minds and get them really interested and involved in the story. In the end, he gets almost hit in the head, and he takes a picture. When Linda and Fernando find him, he's like, "This is incredible." But I purposely did not show what he found, because I want people to be curious, And then the next scene, maybe it's revealed that they actually found a feather, and the story gets going. So that was, they liked that idea, the sort of the structure of that, so that I was invited to do the first storyboard pass. And you'll see there's suddenly a lot more drawings all the way through, because this is in preparation of making an animatic. So we get this misty, mysterious forest, and then way in the background, we see the tiny canoe. They're making their way, they're being watched by animals all around. Animals stop what they're doing to see them come in. Fernando's looking, he's like happy, and she's a little bit nervous. Sees a monkey in the forest, and she's paddling, and suddenly it's a piranha who holds on to paddle. She shakes it off, paddles again, and now there's even more piranhas, and they eat the entire paddle. And she's kind of throws her off. And what you call Tullio is sort of like, "Oh, we're almost there." So the dialogue here, there was no dialogue. I basically, all these beautiful words I came up with myself and pitched. They get closer. They get to the riverbank. He calls Fernando, opens the cage. Out comes the bird. It's running around. And then we see like a high angle shot, kind of from behind the trees. So it kind of makes you feel like somebody is watching them, which is, again, another sort of little story hook, like who's watching them. There's a couple of monkeys, and they look at them, but they also see something else. So all of this is, it's almost subliminal, like you don't really notice it, but you do, because you're seeing it happen before your eyes. Then these other birds come out very hesitantly. Give it some time. They come out and they check each other out, and it's happy. And Tullio says, "She's home." That's very sweet. And Linda asks, "Will she be all right?" And he's like, "Our work is done." And then, of course, he gets attacked. It's like I built this sort of really quiet mood and very sort of sentimental almost, like very sort of touching, and then suddenly it becomes scary, and they get chased off, and he falls down. Tullio! He falls down the slope. You see him fall some more, and he lands, bang. Snake watches him, and he hurt his head, and then there's a flyby again. And they come down after him. Tullio, where are you? Dr. Montero, Linda, this is incredible. So that's the kind of the step from the storyboard pitch to the storyboard pass. As you can tell on this slide, well, it was one panel, one drawing in the pitch turned into how many? 7? Mm-hmm. 7 sketches where you just see the action more, which gives drawings to the editor to time the animatic with, and kind of give a sense of the speed at which this happens. And also there's what was one simple sketch of Tullio falls down the slope, I turn into 3 different shots. So you see the same action from 3 different viewpoints. They could use all 3. They could decide to just use one of them, or whatever they want to do. Basically, I'm just offering up possibilities. And in my mind, at this point, I'm directing the scene, and because I'm working on it, it's the most important scene in the film. I don't feel any restrictions in terms of time. So whenever the ideas run out is when I will stop drawing, kind of thing. So you present it, and you get the second pass. And in the second pass, the assignment was to do more sort of exploration with the characters, try and define Linda and Tullio in particular in this scene more, and also use these rapids, because I think they liked the idea from them going down the rapids from the first pitch. So I won't pitch it the whole thing, but we in the second version you'll see there's no Fernando. He was maybe cut from the scene because it was too expensive, or because he really had no role to play. That's another very important thing if you're making your film. If you find things in your stories that are doubles, that 2 characters are the same, you're probably better off to get rid of one of them and simplify it. So here we're doing the same thing without Fernando. It's still going into the jungle. I kept this joke with the piranha because I liked it to show that it's a dangerous place. And then he gets more talkative. Amazon expedition, day 7. We're nearing the nesting grounds of the wattled curassow. We are in luck. A gaggle of wild curassows are foraging on the river bank. And in this shot, I'm kind of establishing the location. Where are we? The river, the bank, and everything. And then they get closer. And then also I find an angle that shows the rapids without really using them yet, but just to let people know, again, almost subconsciously, that there's rapids. And they may come into play later. Then we pick up the story again, and he says, 6 months ago, we rescued this little bird from smugglers. Sick, broken leg, malnourished. My assistant, he says, and she reacts to him calling her my assistant. This was, to me personally, was a very important moment, because it's the happy ending couple from the first film, where everything seems to be perfect, now have a little bit of a fight between them. He's the doctor, he doesn't really take her seriously yet. And what I saw I tried to pitch, and this is the very beginning of it, is that in the course of this film, Tullio is actually or Linda is actually getting stronger as a character. In the end of the film, she's the one who really saves the birds, and he is a nice guy, but he's kind of a foolish guy also. So this is an attempt to try and get that started. But he doesn't. So you see her react, and he continues. Well, I'll release her back into her natural habitat. And she says he looks a little bit nervous, and he's like, "Good thing I've been working on my curacao." Like he's able to speak bird language. I will now comfort her. And he begins to make all these weird these weird bird noises. Kind of freaks the bird out. And he runs off, and we see again, this high angle shot, somebody's watching them. And Linda's like, will she be okay? Give it some time. And the girl, go on. And they leave. Welcome home. And then the bird returns and begins to make these weird, what is happening here? This is another sort of story hook. What's this bird so excited about? And so Linda asks, what is she saying, Tullio? And now we show that he's full of himself. He thinks he knows everything. Cacacao, it's just hard for her to say goodbye. They imprint on me so strongly. No, it's like she's trying to warn us. No, Linda. And in the acting, you feel that he's a blowhard, full of himself. Cacacao means, ow, he gets hit in the back by a piece of fruit, and in the head again. She gets the spider, falls out of the boat, lands on the bank, and he almost gets hit in the head by a blue streak. Falls, lands with his head on the canoe, and he's out for the count and starts to drift off. And she's like, Tullio! Goes away, he heads towards the squiggly lines at the very right are the rapids. These are hard to draw. So it's very impressionistic. Tullio! Tullio! She runs after him, a couple of shots, he wakes up again, freaks out. And he sees where he's heading. He's going down these rapids. Paddle, she says, Tullio! Paddle! He loses the paddle, and it lands in her hands. She sees him go. Again, this is like showing the dangers of the jungle. And he out of the boat, and she chases after him, but she slips and she falls and she washes down the rapids also. Under the water, holds on to a big tree branch or a big tree, looks up and it's a snake. More jungle dangers, and she swept away. They end up at the bottom of the rapids. She gets up out of the water, looking for Tullio, and you hear him off screen, Linda, Linda. This is incredible. He recorded something, but again, we don't really show what it is yet. So they liked, they really liked that idea of the assistant line and the whole take on Tullio as being this sort of overly confident and not really being very respectful to Linda. Then the third pass, I won't. We did, I don't know, I must have done like 15 passes in all, so I won't show all of them. But the next thing was no surprise attack. So they didn't like the idea, thought maybe it was too complicated to have this mysterious thing happening, which, that's fair enough, I guess. So they're in the jungle by them, they release the bird, it's out on the bank, squawks, and you see their boat is slowly drifting towards the rapids. Things should be all right. They come out, give it some time, the birds connect. A lot of these are, of course, the same panels, which you have like maybe a week or 2 weeks to kind of turn the next pass around. Welcome home. But then the bird they released sees something, comes running up. And what's she saying? It's hard for her to say goodbye. They imprint on me so strongly, you know. Go, 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 go. They're trying to warn them basically for the rapids. No, it's like she's trying to warn us. No, 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 Linda, it's just some sort of mating dance. And she sees the rapids and freaks out like, Tullio, look. They're heading towards the rapids. And he's so goofy, he starts to film it instead of saving himself. Extraordinary. And then together they go down the rapids. And this is obviously, it's a very dynamic, like in a live action film, or if you do it in real life, it's very exciting, these rapids, and now you have to kind of draw it. But in your drawings, even though you can't draw everything, you do have to try and convey the excitement, the visual excitement of the. It's like a ride in a theme park, like a roller coaster. They go down, find all these shots. She doesn't have a paddle anymore. They both get knocked out of the boat. And in the end, they find the feather. And then this is early animatic, not the very first one, but you'll see in this animatic that Fernando is back again. Sorry. Oh, shoot. See, I'm beginning to... So this is what the editing department did, adding sound and timing.
Amazon expedition,
music.
day 7. We near the nesting grounds of the wattled curassow. Beauty surrounds us. while danger lurks around every corner. 6 months ago, we rescued this little bird from smugglers. Sick, broken leg, malnourished. My trusty assistant, loving wife and colleague, will now release her back into her natural habitat.
She looks a little nervous.
Fortunately, I've been working on my curacao. I will now comfort her.
You think she'll be all right?
Give it some time.
And these are not the official voices yet. It's just people who work in the studio.
Welcome home.
They play the parts.
What is she saying, Julio? Oh, it's just hard for her to say goodbye. They imprint on me so strongly, you know.
No, it's like she's trying to warn us.
No, Linda. It might be some sort of mating dance.
Here's almost animated.
Tulio, look! Pedal! Now! Ah! Watch out! Tulio!
Julio, are you okay? Linda!
Tulio! Oh, thank heavens you're okay.
Linda, this is incredible.
And this is, I think. So that's the first version of the animatic, and like I said, we kept reworking the sequence, and this will give you a little impression of different versions. It's all about the moment of let's call it the assistant moment. To try and get the right boards to really make it really clear for people watching.
My assistant will now release her back into her natural habitat. My assistant will now release her back into her natural habitat. My trusty assistant, loving wife and colleague, will now release her back into her natural habitat. My trusty assistant will, loving wife and colleague, loving wife and colleague, will now release her back into her natural habitat.
6 months ago, we rescued this little bird from smugglers.
Loving wife and colleague will now release her back into her natural habitat.
6 months ago,
now,
we
my
rescued
trusty
this little bird
assistant
from smugglers.
malnourished,
loving wife and
broken
colleague will
now,
release her
my
back
trusty
to her
assistant.
natural habitat. Loving wife and colleague will release her back to her natural habitat.
So it's kind of messy in the. Yeah. Okay. So you can see even this little moment, trying to work it in different ways to make it read clearly, and the same goes for other elements in the sequence, like the exact way they find the feather at the end is all. We tried out many different ways, and they, in the end, they picked the one they like best. So this is not the final film version. This the last time. You'll see how it wound up in the film.
Amazon expedition, day 7. 2,000 miles from Rio, we've reached the center of the rainforest.
Fernando's gone.
We are surrounded by plants and animals. We are near the nesting grounds of the Amazonian wood quail, Odontophorus gujanensis. 6 months ago, we rescued this little bird from smugglers. It was sick, malnourished, with a broken leg. But now, my trusty assistant, loving wife and colleague, will release her back to her natural habitat.
It's okay. You can go now. Just like this.
Let me talk to her.
Go on. Do you think she's
But
going to be all
animation
right?
adds lots of subtlety
Give it
to
some
the
time.
acting, of course.
Welcome home. Wait a minute. What is she saying, Tulio?
They imprint on me so strongly, you know. It's just hard for her to say goodbye.
No, I think she's trying to warn us.
Oh, no, Linda. It might be some sort of mating dance.
Tulio, look! Paddle! Now!
Woo! Okay. Better. Watch out! Better. Backward. To the right. No. Left. Forward. No.
Make up your mind, Tulio! Ah! Cheese and sprinkles! Ah! Oh no!
Linda!
Tulio! Yuck! Ugh! Oh, thank heavens you're okay. Tulio, is that a...
Linda, this is incredible.
So that's, like I said, there's like between the story beat pass and the storyboard pass, I added lots and lots of drawings, but you don't do all the subtle details. If you could even draw those things, you could tell how hard we struggled to get this her rolling her eyes right for the assistant moment. The animators come in and they take these moments and really make them shine by adding lots of really funny action to the way the little bird behaves in the cage and stuff like that. And along the way, I think I wrote the first drafts of this sequence, but then later on there was writers coming in who were, changing the lines and rewriting the dialogue. So, but the fun thing for me is that that one moment survived, and it's a key moment because also when they go down the rapids, she has a line like, "Tulio, make up your mind," which also gives her makes her a little bit more feisty. Like she's not just a girl. I kind of think she has an attitude, and that's, I think, was really important for those two characters to become interesting to watch. So, they have a story to tell, basically. There were some ideas that I really liked that didn't make it into the film. Like I'm pretty proud that I managed to turn, let's say, a kind of boring scene of it's a TV and somebody says, "Well, we found this," into a sequence that actually puts you right in the middle of it, and also shows you some of the dangers that are involved. So when Blue and his family decide to go to the Amazon, it gives, as an audience, it gives you a little bit like anticipation, like, oh, this could be good, or this could be really bad for them, could be dangerous. So I really like the joke I had with the piranha and the paddle. I don't know why they didn't use that, but in the end, it turned out to be just a fish eating a butterfly. And the whole idea of these macaws trying to scare the humans away from the jungle is also an idea I liked, and I pitched a lot of ideas along the way also, how that could play out. Like they could, get ants to come over in their sleeping bags, or put snakes or ants in their boots and the facial cream. They could get a woodpecker and make a hole in their boat. All these things to try and sabotage Linda and Tullio. And I thought the interesting thing from a story point of view, because to have a nice story, it has to be some kind of conflict, that they would force Blue to help with these sabotage missions. And now Blue has to, on the one hand, prove to the tribe of the wild birds that he's one of them. But he's also trying to sort of, hurt his owner, the people he loves. And that's kind of the whole story conflict in his character, is that he's torn between being too much like a human and he wants to be a real bird. And by the end of the film, I think it's the fact that he understands humans makes it possible for these birds to fend off the people who come in to tear down the rainforest. Well, this I'll show. I don't know how we're doing for time, but this I'll go through really quick. It's a different way of finding the feather. Like she cuts out of the water, and she's struggling. Nice drawings. Then he sees something on her back. No, wait. She doesn't know what it is. Could be a snake. Could be a scary bug. Nervous, it can't be. We don't see what it is yet. What does it do? What is it? And you hear weird noises. He's tasting it, and it's this feather. So instead of the feather just kind of like floating down, I thought, it might be a funny idea if it stuck to her while she went down the rapids. But again, these are, I liked them that week, and then they didn't use it, and you just move on to. That's the thing about working in this kind of in this setting and story. You shouldn't be too precious about the ideas. Like you can't get upset because all you're doing is, well, what about this? What about that? You're trying to sell them on something. And sometimes the ideas they like it and it stays in the film for a couple of weeks, and then they may fall out of love with it again, or there might be. Like the whole rapids thing is, of course, a very expensive sequence to make, so that could have been cut just to cut some costs, also. Anyway, this is the end of that thing, and this is two little things I can show that are other things that I've added that weren't in the script. So you just you think that the movie needs a little bit of something here to cut away from the parrot story to Linda and Tullio to keep them active. And these are sleeping. There's no dialogue in this because
Shoo, go on.
So that scene pretty much made it into the movie. This is another one. It's very short. At this point, Linda is hiding out in the jungle, and the bad guys are chasing her. And it's too scary to really. So it's just a little tension moment. I felt the film needs something here to kind of, to keep, because of course it was a story that had the bird story and then the human story. So you have to sort of keep both things going at the same time. And so this is really, that kind of sums up the whole talk. That in storyboarding you have lots of ideas, and most of them go into the trash. But a few of them don't, and in the end, not just because of me, but because of the whole team that's working on the film, all the way through from the from us at the very beginning to the people who do the finished rendering and the lighting and everything. It turns out to be an actual movie. So I don't know, do we have time?
Well,
10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes for Q&A, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll really quickly, because this is another film I worked on, the last film, big film I worked on is Pinóquio. I don't know if you've seen it. It won the Academy Award, I think, last year. And it was the first time I worked on a stop motion film with actual puppets. And it was a very different film. The director was Guillermo del Toro, who's like a very famous live-action guy. So he had a lot of, they really trusted him. And he was going to make an animated feature, but it was going to be set in Italy at the time of the rise of fascism. And as I read this in the script, again, I was involved really early on. The script was in the first draft. I thought to myself, do you really think you can make a children's film about fascism? Isn't at some point along the way somebody in the studio going to wake up and say, hang on, we can't do fascism. So then I thought, what I should do is to kind of almost like in my storyboards, push the idea of the fascism, make it really, so it's not just something you say when you talk about the film, but it's actually in the film. And so I'm pushing the envelope in a certain way to help them make up their mind whether that's what they really want to do or whether it's a nice bit of sales talk kind of thing. And the next challenge, of course, is how do you make fascism funny? So this is a scene in the film. Geppetto, who made Pinocchio, of course, is restoring a Christ statue in the church, and I think it's the leader of the fascist movement comes to visit and confront him. So we open up. He's mixing his paints, painting this Jesus statue. Another do you really want to do this? You really. Because again, that might not play in all countries that well. But he goes down the ladder, and behind him, a couple of characters enter the church. He admires his work, cleans his brush, and suddenly bumps into this guy, looks around, and there's this fascist guy in a big leather coat. He's restored, says the priest. And the guy immediately brings the Hitler salute. And then Geppetto sort of quickly does it too, but he loses touch of his brush, and it lands and kind of splatters the shoes and the coat of this fascist guy, which I thought was kind of funny and makes you think okay, how is he going to take this? Well, he's not amused, of course. He's kind of angry, and then he starts to, and Geppetto then goes to clean. So suddenly, he becomes very subservient, which I thought was a nice moment. And the guy starts to talk. He says, "Your boy didn't show up at school today." And the other character is Lampwick, is the son of the fascist leader guy. But he left this morning. I sent him there. Obviously, the puppet is quite a dissident. An independent thinker, I'd say. You'd better look for him and teach him a lesson. drill some sense into him as he picks up a drill. Sense? Make him a clean young patriot. Look at my son, Lampwick. He's all you could want in a child. Strong, athletic, obedient. Then he sees his son doesn't react and he kind of slaps him in the back of the head, so he quickly makes a salute again. This is again like, fascists aren't nice people idea. And and Geppetto brings the salute again, and I trust we'll see Pinocchio at school tomorrow. And he walks off, and then the kid does this very typical Italian, like, fuck you symbol, I think it is. Tomorrow. Yes, yes. And we see that Geppetto is kind of like, he has it, but he goes into this. So this is, and again, I'm happy that when you see the final film, it's not like exactly the way I storyboarded, but a lot of these, the ideas that are in there survive to the very end. And I was involved in quite early in the beginning, and it took a long, long time to make the film with COVID happening along the way. So it's very, it makes you feel good when you see the film and something that you contributed, you can actually point at, like, see, you can tell people at birthday parties, like, what you actually did instead of filling the trash can, you actually can point at something. So that's kind of my talk, to kind of take you through, just to show how much you can work a story, to try and find the right shape and form, to not be too, a drawing is, you're going to make a lot of drawings, and you should, just to try out different things. Yeah, so, and it's a lot of fun, despite all the, the pain of not having your ideas make it. It's a lot of fun to do. So, are there any questions? Yeah? Way in the back.
So I don't remember when I heard this, but like in the Despicable Me movie, right? The minions were supposed to be like the Italian mafia before being like little monsters.
In the Minions, you mean?
The Despicable Me movie.
Despicable Me movie, the Minions, yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I was like, and that's a very, like normally you'd work with the whole story team in a studio, be in the same room. If you make your presentation, all the other story people are there, so you can all see each other's work, which of course is good, because what somebody else is doing has meaning for what you're doing. And if you hear that the director likes something in somebody else's work, then you can try and adjust your work accordingly. But Despicable Me was made by Illumination, and they didn't have a physical studio, so they had lots of storyboard artists, but they all worked from home. And they all worked on, had the same problem, like, what do we do with these minions? And I never got to see anybody else's work, so I did my thing, presented it, and it may well be that at some point in the process they had this idea to think of them as little Nazis.
Thank you.
But when I was on it, nobody could really tell me yet what they were, if they could speak, if they had language, where they came from, what they were to begin with. It was all very open.
Okay.
So, and they made it. I really like those films, because I like funny films more than these kind of dramatic films.
Hello.
Hello.
So, do you have any advice for keeping a storyline without any dialogue be very clear? Because sometimes it's a bit hard without the dialogue.
Yeah, well, it's. I think it's all in this whole idea of you have to build the contrasts in your. So if you have. We have to assign meaning to things, like this is normal, and this character does something else. So then it tells us something about this character. It tells us something about moves your story along. So if in a story without dialogue, which I think is it's a really good exercise, because dialogue is a little bit of, like, you can really rely on it. The first pass of this, my famous assistant eye roll moment, I tried to put across without dialogue, and then as it evolved, they put dialogue to it, and it became more like spelled out. Now you can't really miss it. That's the good thing. And if it had been just in the acting, it would have been more subtle. Maybe not everybody would have picked up on it, but it was just hard to storyboard, because as a storyboard artist, you don't really control the timing. You just hand in your sketches, and sometimes you get a request from editorial to add a couple more drawings in between. I mean, in general, I think if you work on your own films, my advice is to try and feel very free to try things in your storyline. So you could, if you add dialogue and it makes it work better, and you show it to friends, and suddenly they get what you're talking about, then it may be a good thing. Or if you don't want to use dialogue, you do something, you present it, you get people's feedback, and they don't quite get it, then you know where to work on to make it better. I really think of stories as a big Lego set. Like it's a beautiful thing. It's supposed to be a car, and it looks like a car, but you can also take it apart and use these same elements, put them together in a different way, and it may look like a better car or like a terrible car, and then you can always go back. But I hear a lot of students that I work with every now and again. They feel they have this idea and it's very precious, and they don't want to ruin it. But I don't think you can ruin anything. You can try it. If you don't like it, you try something else, or you go back to what you had before. And I think the same goes with stories without dialogue. And a lot of things you have to. You can find subtle ways to explain things, because not everything may be immediately clear to all audiences. Like in this Pinóquio film, there's a whole thing with floating mines that are floating in the sea, and then like big round balls with spikes on them, and if a ship hits the spike, boom, it explodes. But if you're a modern day kid, all you see is that it's a ball floating in you don't know what it does yet. So in one sequence, I just shot to, you see a seagull flies in and lands on one of those spikes, and it sits there for a second, and then you hear click, and you cut wide, and way in the distance you see, it's a dead bird. And that also made it into the film. It was a way to sort of, without dialogue, just make it really clear what the story was. If I hadn't done that, it would be just maybe very vague, and only for kids who knew their history of warfare who could make sense of it. So I think those kind of things you can always hunt for in your storylines. Like, what can you do to really, put things into focus and put across clearly what you're trying to say, and then how it changes as you go along.
I also have a question about, because during the presentation I was able to see that most ideas end up not getting into the final version. Yeah. How do you separate yourself enough from the work that it isn't, that you don't feel bad about those ideas being cut?
Well, it takes years of experience. And no, it's you have to understand that you're part of a machine kind of thing, or part of a bigger, not a machine, but part of a bigger thing. It's bigger than me. I've been also in the position to direct, and then it's up to me to make the choices and hurt people's feelings by not using their nice ideas. So you go back to your desk. You probably that day you don't do much of anything, and you're kind of like sulking a little bit, like not so much because they didn't use the ideas, but now you have to redo it again. Like for Despicable Me, for instance, I did this whole sequence with pretty complicated sequence where the character's driving these orphan girls home in a tiny car, and the whole idea was this car could change shape. You could hit the button and it would morph into something else. It's a big sequence, and I finally do the presentation, and like I said, it was this illumination studio. It was all working long distance. They tell me, well, yeah, we like the sequence, but we changed our mind, and now it's not a small car, it's actually a really, really big car. And then I felt a little bit like, oh, now I have to, I can trash everything I did, and I have to kind of reimagine it using a really big car. So that wasn't a nice afternoon. But also, it's a job. You know, you get, they pay you to do it again, and you know, as long as they pay you, it makes the hurt go away a little bit more. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. We don't have more time for questions, so I would like to thank Piet for this wonderful journey through his creative process and for sharing the secrets, and also for the acting. You are actually a great performer. I'm going to hire you, so I thank you for Sinanima also for this opportunity. And yeah, you are actually invited to Sinanima at least Saturday. Until Sunday, okay? So thank you and have a nice day.